think this is a very important project, and we're very excited to share our ideas this afternoon and get some feedback from you all on what we've developed to date. Perkins and Will review the concept alternatives that they've been developing over the last 2 months. The project area is about half an acre, confined at the intersection of First Street and Green Street at Town Common. The site has a significant history. It has a significant past. Most of you know that Town Common was downtown, an important African American community that was lost as a product of urban renewal. Part of Town Common was the Sycamore Hill Baptist Church, and it was an important cornerstone institution for the community. So there's an opportunity to celebrate not only the church, but most importantly perhaps is to celebrate the community as a whole.
We took away 3 just prevailing themes. They resonated so strongly with us, and it was community, spirituality, and history. And so we went back, and in our offices we met extensively, had charrettes around these 3 themes. And I'm going to invite Michael to come up now and sort of walk you through how we arrived at different concepts that in our minds just kind of codify these themes.
We couldn't have 50 ideas, so we had to get them down to some really essential ones. So the ones that are highlighted in green are some of them that we thought we heard over and over that we could start to build design ideas around. So in terms of community, something that came out very clearly was the pride in that community, the home ownership, the families, and that was something that we think is really a key idea that we wanted to incorporate in our designs. The second was spirituality. I think just about every member of the church mentioned music in some aspect of the music, and how that was such a part of being a member of the church, and also for the youth, a way for them to get involved with church life and the structure that the church provided for the community, for the church members, for the youth, and that providing a foundation for those people to go out later in life in all avenues of all kinds of careers all around the country and do really significant things. And then in terms of history, something that came out very clearly to us was the prominence that the church had in the community and in the city, as an institution, as a congregation, but also just as a physical artifact in the urban context. A beautiful building right on the corner, right where you came in across the bridge, across the river, the first thing that you would experience. So we thought those were some very key ideas, and we tried to, through design, interpret that in physical form. So this is the landscape plan as it started to get developed, and we would be blending landscape and planted areas with the paved areas, and then having pathways that led down to the park, down to the river, places to sit where you could view the river. And then these are some 3-dimensional views as we started to think about how it would take 3-dimensional form. So a tower on the corner, and the 3 special places I mentioned, our idea is to mark them with colored glass that recalls the stained glass windows. So the largest one on the corner, one where there used to be the large window, and then the third would be up behind where the choir was. Then in the central gathering space, we're imagining having some benches that are sort of a interpretation of where the pews used to be. And then all of this surrounded by these variety of walls of different heights, different proportions, where we could display all the content that will that will be the history element. So we want people to walk by and maybe they don't know what this is. They just think it's interesting, but as they come in, they start to experience. That's when they start learning. And so that's when you're in that space, that's when you start to experience all that. So this is the view from the corner of First and Green. And then as you would walk down the sidewalk, this would be as you would start to walk inside of it. I think that gives you a sense of how it might feel inside of it. These are just samples of, maybe images or quotes that would be incorporated into it. Another view. We like the idea of that. We were there one morning, and the sunlight coming through those trees is very beautiful. We want to keep that. We want to keep the trees and add more trees. So that idea of the beautiful light filtering into the space with the shade would be very, very beautiful. And then also, we realize that it's not only looking at it from the street, but also as you come up from the river, coming up the hill, you're going to see it that way. So we want to make sure that was something that draw you into it from the park side as well. Now, the second one is kind of based more on the idea of a sanctuary, a place of refuge, and a place. And I was talking to Mr. Barber earlier about how in the black community, the church, it wasn't just about Sunday services, but it had a much bigger function for the community. It was a place to gather for many purposes. And that idea of a place of refuge, but also a gateway, because this, after all, this is going to be the new gateway to the public park, the town common. So the landscape plan, again, we want to bring nature into this space, have a gathering space with seating where you could actually have activities. Maybe there's a reunion, maybe there's a wedding, maybe there's some other kind of function, but it would really serve a community purpose. And then places to sit and look down to the river, look to the park, and recall the actual sycamore grove that was there. So this is our image of it, the gateway and a place of refuge. And what we're thinking about is this would be a structure that would have these, as you looked up, it would have a feeling of rafters of a roof. We don't know exactly, and you probably do, but we're imagining maybe as you looked up you saw rafters and some sort of wood decking, something like that. And so we're thinking about that as this kind of pattern and a texture as you look up. But unlike a church, you still see the daylight, you can see the trees through it, so you have that connection to nature. And like the first one, we really do want the vertical tower on the corner, that idea of prominence. And but when you're in it, you start to get that feeling of a sanctuary, of a place of refuge. You feel protected, you're under shade, and it's comfortable. It's a place you could gather. And we would also want to have walls, but in a very different character, a very different geometry, but providing those places, those opportunities to put the historical content. And I think this really shows kind of the idea of the roof that's protecting and creating that refuge. And then the view as you would walk up from the river, coming up towards town.